Hi guys, and welcome to your first lesson with Microsoft Word. So all of these lessons are going to be broken apart into little snippets or segments that have to do with specific parts of your Microsoft certification exam. So in this lesson, we're going to focus primarily on tables and how tables work in Microsoft Word. And sometimes they're kind of tricky, but for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward process. All right, so just kind of follow along with me and do exactly what I do. And I'm going to say, once you watch me and you kind of edit the document with me, you probably want to go through this without me on the screen at all and see if you can do this by yourself as well, just to kind of test your memory out a little bit. All right. And the first section we're going to start with here is called tables. So you'll notice here in your Classcraft accounts that I did assign, or not assign, sorry. I did attach quite a few documents here. For the most part, we're only going to use one per section. So for part one here, we're going to start with this document called Tables Practice. And for every section that you do, you're going to open up this Word Certification Testing Notes PDF. And let's go ahead and check this out real quick. So for your Word Certification PDF, you can see, let me kind of explain how this is broken down. Just in case the video stuff is kind of annoying for you and you just kind of want to look at the step-by-step process to solve each problem, or maybe do the problems first and then watch the video to see if you know how to do it before I show you how to do it, you can do that. You can go ahead and pause me and kind of work through that, because you'll notice that for each question, I actually listed the step-by-step process on how to actually solve each problem dealing with tables practice. All right, and that's all we're going to do for this particular lesson for part one is tables practice. As you guys scroll down, you'll see that I have for number 13, all questions 1 through 12 have to do with tables. Question 13 actually starts a little mini lesson on pictures. So that's going to be part two. Question 22 picks up with a little mini lesson on text and formatting text in Microsoft Word. And that goes until question number 26. And then we pick it up with another lesson called Smart Objects. All right, so there's a bunch of little mini lessons here that hopefully won't take you guys more than, I don't know, I'm going to say 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And what I would recommend that you guys do with these videos is definitely turn on closed captioning so you can kind of read along with me. And you can see that the text version of what I'm saying. The only reason I say that is because your test is very verbal. You have to kind of know and recognize the questions, and because it's a time test, I'm going to say the quicker that you're able to recognize the question and pick out what you need to do, the better off you're going to be. So turn on closed captioning so that you can read along with me here. And let's go ahead and get into this. So it says for tables practice, we're going to start out with the tables document in our Classcraft accounts. So let's go ahead and go back to Classcraft. Here's our tables practice document. I'm just going to click on that and open this up real quick. Boom. All right, and it took a second, but it's there. All right, so tables practice, you'll notice that it doesn't really have a whole lot going on. We're going to fill in a lot of this stuff, but if you scroll through your document, you'll see that page 1 is kind of blank. Page 2 has some text that we're going to convert into a table. And then text 3 has some more text that we're going to try to manipulate and convert it to a table and play around with our table dimensions. All right, so let's check out what we have to do for the first question here. All right, so let's get into this. If you go back to our little list of chores that we have to get done here, the first thing in tables practice says on page 3, create a table from the text Monday to recycling. Create the table with 6 columns that spread across the entire width of the window. Separate text at tabs. Okay. So in this one, we're basically going to take the text on table 3 from Monday to recycling. We're going to create a table with 6 columns. And if you notice here, it basically breaks down step by step. So let's go ahead and open our Word document. If you don't have it open yet, pop it open. On page 3, which I believe I'm on. Yep, this is page 3. It says from Monday to Saturday, or Monday to recycling. So what I'm going to do here is click actually right here. Notice how there's this little space between Monday and the edge of my pane here. So I'm going to click that little space and select all the way down. When I actually go to the Insert tab, I'm going to say Insert, table, and I'm just going to say insert table, all right, or convert text to table, either one. When I say insert table, this is what happens. If I were to undo that there and say insert table, convert text to table, it would actually tell me what I want to do here, how many columns, how many rows, fixed column width auto, auto fit contents, and auto fit to window. And then you actually get some options here that actually says separate text at. And if you really look at the question, part of that question does want us to actually separate text at tabs, I believe it was. So let's look at that real quick. Click on insert table and choose insert table, insert tab, I'm sorry. And it does say separate text at tabs. All right, so I'm going to go to my Word document here. And when I do select Monday through recycling, and I select the entire paragraph that they want me to actually select, I'm going to say, I'm going to make sure that my separated tabs is already selected, and I think by default it always is. Make sure you have 6 columns, 5 rows, and we're going to click OK. All right, and it should look something just like that. Another thing I kind of want to bring to your attention here before I move on from this little question, and I know I'm kind of rambling, and I already said I wouldn't do that, but here we go. So let me undo that real quick. There's a keyboard shortcut for undo, which is Control Z on your keyboard. If you hit Control Z, that's undo. Control Y is actually redo. So I'm going to undo that real quick. And let me show you what the difference is between auto-fitting contents and just inserting table. So when I go to insert and I say table this time, I'm actually going to say convert text to table. And notice here that I had these little options that I didn't really play with last time. So by default, you're going to have this fixed column width auto. And if you change that and you say auto fit contents, you're going to notice that my table is actually going to be a lot smaller because the table itself will just have enough room for the actual text that's in the cells. So it does something called auto fitting contents, which just means that your columns are a little tighter. They're not quite as wide as they were before. All right. And again, I'll undo that real quick so you can see the difference when I say insert table. And I don't say auto fit contents this time. It actually spreads across the entire worksheet. And if you read the question, that's what they want you to do. They want a table with 6 columns and 5 rows, and they want it to spread across the entire table. All right. So let's move on to question number 2. On page 3, set the style of the text in row 1 to heading 1. All right. So styles in Microsoft Word are actually really important, and it kind of dictates a lot of things that happen under the reference tab. So if you're ever writing a research paper or you need to put in references or a bibliography or a table of contents, it's really important to pay attention to what's called your text styles. All right. So it says on page 3, set the style of the text in row 1 to heading 1. So let's look and see on page 3. Set the style of the text in row 1 to heading 1. All right. So this is our text. This is our header row, which is row 1. Under the Home tab, you're going to see all these different styles. And all a style is, if you hover over them without clicking on them, you'll notice that it gives you a little preview of how it's going to look. All a style is kind of a pre-made format for your text. So heading 1 gives you this blue text, this blue font. Heading 2 gives you a smaller blue font, and then you have something called title, and then subtitle. You have subtle emphasis, and if you click the arrow down here, you'll see that you have emphasis, intense emphasis, strong quote, intense quote, and these are all really cool, but they do have a purpose. So let's go ahead and set this to heading 1, and I'll show you what it actually allows me to do. When I set my text to heading 1, I can now click down here and under the Reference tab, I can actually say Table of Contents, Automatic Table. It's going to pull whatever is in your Word document set as a heading 1, actually cues Microsoft Word to set up your table of contents for you. So when my kids were writing the research papers, I had them divide their research paper biographies into certain sections so that when they went back, when they were done writing their paper and they went back, all they really had to do, because they had already set their headings to the heading 1 style, all they had to do was put in a page break to give them a clean page, and they had to say table of contents, automatic table. And it saved them a lot of work. And anytime you tell the kids that, you know, it'll save you a lot of work and you don't have to do anything, they're all about it. So that's kind of what styles do. It tells Microsoft Word exactly what you want to do with your document. So if you're setting things to heading 1, chances are you're writing a research paper, so it's automatically going to populate your table of contents for you. Okay, so just a little FYI. I know I rambled a lot on that one. All right, and moving right along, we're already at a kind of a 10-minute video, so I might only do like the first 5 problems with you today and just kind of cut it short because I know this gets boring. On page 3, it says we want to sort the table by the first column in ascending order. All right. So on page 3, the first column of page 3 is this dishes, recycling, feed fish, homework column right here. So here's the deal with tables. When you hover off to the side of a table, you can actually click off to the side here to select an entire row of a table. And same goes for columns. If you hover your mouse up here without actually clicking, notice how my cursor has now turned to a downward facing arrow. I can now click in it, I can select an entire column. All right. And what you want to do is select that entire column. When you click on anything in Microsoft Word, whether it's a table or a picture, you're going to get a special few tabs that just has to deal with tables and pictures. So what you want to do here is you want to go to the Layout tab, and under the Layout tab, once you have column 1 selected, they want us to do a sort, and they want us to sort this in ascending order, which means alphabetically A to Z, all right? Descending as Z to A, all right? So sort, you're going to get a pop-up window here. We want to sort column 1, so don't touch that, all right? We don't have any other options there anyway. We want to sort the text, and we want to sort it in ascending order. And down here, when I click OK, you should notice that dishes jumps up. It should be like dishes, you know, I don't have to explain what alphabetical order is. Just click OK. All right, so we go to dishes, feed, fish, homework, recycling. So it puts it in alphabetical order. All right, it also modifies where it kind of keeps all your check marks up to date. So if I undo that, the check marks also moved. So, you know, my homework actually moved down. Let me redo this and notice that it actually keeps the data kind of nice and organized. It's a pretty smart program. It's smarter than me. All right, so let's move on to number 4. So number 4 is one of those things that I always use. I use this all the time because when I work with tables, and I work with a big table, the last thing I want to do is have to constantly scroll up to the page above it to see what my column header is to make sure that I'm entering the correct data. So in this one, number 4, it says configure the table on page 3 so that the column headings repeat onto the next page. So this is pretty cool. If you have a big table, you won't have to keep scrolling up to look at your columns. So let's look at the table on page 3 again. It seems like we're only really messing with this table here. And basically what it wants me to do is configure my row here, my header row, which this is my header, to repeat. So if my table were to continue on to the next page, I could see my headers actually repeat. So right now, let me show you what it's going to do right now. If I click in the last cell of my table and I press enter, 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 and I go down to the next page, you'll notice that I have no header row on this page right here. There's no headers at all. So if I want to look and say, all right, I need to enter something into this cell, I don't even know what that cell is, you have to kind of, go up and see, okay, what is that header? Where am I entering this stuff? Oh, too far. There. All right, so what I want to do is have these rows actually repeat. So I'm going to click on the row itself. Under Table Tools Layout tab here, you're going to see over here all the way to the right, you're going to see something that says Repeat Header Row. And if you click it, it doesn't look like it did anything, but if you scroll down now, look, it's like magic. So now I can kind of see, like, if I want to click and enter something into this cell down here, I know it's Tuesday. I don't have to scroll all the way up to do that. This is a really handy function in Excel because Excel, you work with like these huge tables, and the worst thing in the world is have to kind of scroll up and make sure that you're under, Microsoft Word, and then go back down and make sure you're on the right student and make sure you enter the pass rate. But either way, so that's repeating header rows. And all it does is it makes it so if your table does continue down the next page, your header rows do as well. And that brings us to number 5, and this will probably be the last one. This will be a nice short first lesson just to get your feet wet, I guess, with Microsoft Word. And then I'll throw another one in there for you next week, and maybe we'll pick up the pace a little bit and try to do 10 next week. 5 the first week, maybe 10 next week. We'll play it by ear. We'll see how it goes. On page 2, to the right of weekly chore schedule, insert a footnote. Cut the text school holiday and paste it into the footnote. So footnotes are just kind of a good way if you need to put like a explanation of a word, of like a big word or something like that, and it's not a common word and you feel like people aren't going to know what it means, or you need to elaborate on like a piece of text in your document, a footnote is a good place to do that. And you've probably seen them before. So on page 2, to the right of weekly chore schedule, we're going to insert a footnote. So let's go to page 2 and find weekly chore schedule. Boom. We're going to insert a footnote right here, and when I do, you should see a little number 1 that tells me that I have a footnote beside this word. So if I want to elaborate on the word schedule and actually put the schedule in the footnote so that people don't have to look up what the schedule is, that would be a good thing to do with this footnote. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab here, all right? And under the Insert tab, it's not actually under the Insert tab. I always think it's under the Insert tab, but it's not. Your Insert tab has your hyperlinks and your bookmarks. Under the Reference tab, we should see Footnotes. Yeah, and be careful here. You have footnotes and endnotes here. Don't get them confused. A footnote will go to the bottom of the current page that you're clicked on, and an endnote is exactly the same thing, but it literally goes to the bottom of the actual document. So if you have like a 50-page document, your endnote's going to go on page 50. So let's go ahead and say Insert Footnote. Notice how it jumps me right down to the bottom here. It wants us to actually cut and paste the words school holiday. So I'm just going to click and drag over the words school holiday. Your keyboard shortcut for cut is actually Control X on your keyboard, or you can just right click. All right, but your keyboard shortcut for cut is Control X. You would think it's Control C, but Control C is copy. All right, so Control X, and when I hit Control X, I'm just going to scroll down back to my footnote. It's going to let me click right in here, and my keyboard shortcut for paste is Control V, or you can just right click. All right, but those are 2 keyboard shortcuts that I use a lot. I know my kids use them every day. If it's one thing they know how to do, it's copy and paste. So for right now, guys, I'm going to say let's kind of call it a day for this video. We're at about 17 minutes already, and I'm sure it was painful. And when we come back next week, I'm going to run you guys through the rest of tables practice. So I hope this was okay for you. I hope you learned a little bit about tables in Microsoft Word. And before I actually close this out, I will probably do this again next week, but notice how we actually had this table right here. There is a way that I can kind of revert things back, and I can take a table back to text, all right? And it's called Convert to Text. So over here under the Layout tab, you'll actually see Convert to Text. So if you want to take text to a table, it's under the Insert tab, and you're going to say Table, Convert Text to Table. However, if you want to go backwards, you have to go to the Layout tab, and you have to say Convert to Text, all right? And it's going to say Separated Tabs. Sure, Separated Tab. Let's do that. All right, and it'll take it right back to the table that you started with when it all happened. But it's kind of confusing because it is under 2 different tabs. All right, and that's it. 18 minutes. I'm sorry. I hope you guys learned something. Oh, and if you like this video, subscribe.